All right, sweet. All right, well, everyone who is joining live, thank you for being here with us with another episode of Blood, Sweat, and Wax. Obviously, I'm teamed up with my friends who just get better by the day, Turnit and Jake. But before we get right into it, obviously you see someone new, and we definitely have to give our respect to this person who has really just made us find each other through this hobby. It's none other than Chicken 101. And Chicken, would you like to introduce yourself just for a little bit?
We'll roll, turn it. Jiho, it's a pleasure to be here today. We know each other, but this is the first time we've actually, I've seen your faces all together.
Yeah,
Um,
that's fair.
Excited to be here, Bok Bok. Thank you for having me, and I hope I add some sort of value or entertainment for you today.
I have no doubt that you will, and we greatly appreciate you. You are a legend of not only the game, but just the overall hobby. So thank you for being with us. I'm sure that we're just going to learn from you today, if at all. And right
Yeah.
before we do get into this episode for today, just want to give a quick shout out to Joe's Card Stash. This guy is another legend of the sport. He talks about UFC, talks about UFC cards. He is a photographer there at where he works. And we'll obviously provide you a description below to both check out Chicken's channel on Whatnot, but also Joe's Card Stash. So just make sure that you follow both. Can't say enough of both of those individuals.
Great content.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
and then to respond to one thing Chicken said, I don't think any of us would be here together here right now if it wasn't for Chicken. And this is not the only group of folks, Chicken, that have said this. So as you know,
I think y'all give me too much credit. I will say that.
that's fair. But you
Yeah.
deserve every bit of it.
Well, thank
Yeah.
you.
We simply can't get enough. And obviously, when people are going to be rewatching this, we're going to learn something new each and every single time. Obviously, we're wrapping up 2022, and we've got lots to discuss. We're going to be talking about Panini's releases this year, next year, what's going to happen with the market, especially with the economic swings. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about 2022's releases. What do you guys like about it? I mean, what didn't we like about it? Obviously, we just got Donruss Optic. Before that, we had Immaculate. So what are your guys' thoughts?
If I could start, I think like it was like the end of 2021 leading up to 2022 was a very strange time because it was tumultuous. It was like the market was turning, and I'm not just saying in terms of sports cards. Every single market, every asset class was turning. And Immaculate was this like flagship premier product that Panini tried to put out, and I think it kind of upset people because the timing was just off. It was something that had such a high price point, and it came out at the wrong time where everything was starting to go down a little bit, just in terms of people's expendable income. I don't know, but I think that timing kind of hurt that brand a little bit, which is unfortunate because me personally, I know we're talking about 2021 product here, but I personally love on-card autos. And that was one of the first times we saw that from Panini for UFC. And I still have a lot of Marks of Greatness cards that I like a lot. And that's one of my favorite, parallels and such. So we saw that happen. And then 2022, we saw Prizm come out. And if I can touch on 2022 Prizm a little bit, I think that rookie class is very, very, very exciting, and it's undervalued right now. If you watch breaks, if you look at like the pink Prizm packs or cracked ice packs or any of that, there's like every other pack has rookies, and these rookies, like more than half, in my opinion, are very promising, very interesting, very fun to follow. The price is the price is very reasonable and approachable. Obviously, it's come down a little bit since the beginning of 2022, or maybe it was a little bit cost prohibitive for people. But I think what we saw Panini do is pivot away from trying to sell luxe brands and just like these small sort of population sizes for some of these parallels. And they moved into a segment where I think there's more hits, more parallels, more low numbered cards. And we saw that with Select. We saw that with Chronicles. And I actually think that's great because not only do you get lower price points, but you get more low serial numbered cards people can actually add to their PC without feeling like they're paying a small fortune to get access to that product. So I think they pivoted it. It took a little bit to move the oil tanker, right? It takes a little bit of time to do that. So there was some hiccups towards the end, but I think like I've from other channels that I've watched, like Rudy, etc., for Magic the Gathering, and other folks that follows collectibles in general, like the printing cycle is months and months ahead, right? So
Right.
they corrected. It looks to me like they corrected relatively quickly, and we're lucky in the UFC in that I don't think Panini has printed things to oblivion, because to them the perceived market is so small. So I don't think we're seeing like the same kind of potential kind of like just drop from the bottom of like 30 to 50 different parallels each product for each rookie. We don't have that happen in the UFC. So anyway, that's a little bit long-winded, but that's just my take overall. And I think they did okay towards the end.
Yeah. Jake, your take on this?
I agree. Yeah, I think Optic really fixed what went wrong with Donruss, in my opinion. I like the new rated rookies. I think they look great. I'll admit, I'll be the first one to admit I wasn't wild on Optic to begin with. Not when it came out, but beforehand. I didn't think that it had much more to offer than what Donruss did, but I'll admit I made a mistake. I think it's a great set. As far as Select, I think you're right. I think the price points went down after Prizm, which was the first set of this year. With Select, and it was a great set also. Chronicles, all great sets in my opinion. I know the price of Chronicles may not be as high as some of the others, but I think it's definitely it's got a lot to offer with the variety, and I think that's what people are looking for. Sets a lower price rate or price for people to break. So overall, I've been super happy with this year's sets. I'm looking forward to Immaculate, but it's going to be a little bit higher price, but it'll be fun to break.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you on there. Like selected a lot this year for us, right? You got a lot of people interested in different parallels, different sort of takes. But let's talk to the Botmeister Chicken 101. What's your take on this year's series?
So, as for the newcomers, Panini only made UFC starting in 2021. So prior it was Topps, and their 2021 products were solid. They also had some hyped rookies in that definitely helped. And if you're not familiar, the UFC was basically a lower end product for the first probably 5 to 7 months of 2021, and then the Hamzat train and all sorts of good stuff started happening, and then it skyrocketed to, at one point, I think boxes of Prizm were like $2,500.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Like 3 or 4 months before they were around 900, then it got expensive at 1,100, and then it just got really expensive after that. And it was wild, and I started breaking. I enjoyed the cards, but I started breaking in like Thanksgiving of 2021, and all I did was select H2, and it was, I think I charged $200 or $205 a box, and we broke that like crazy. And 2022 came around, and I think I started making my first like big boy purchases into Chronicles and other stuff like that from the previous year, and then Prizm came out, at just under $1,000 a box on the Panini website, and I think it was reselling on the bigger ones for like 1,100 to 1,200. And you saw this trend where usually when something releases, it slowly creeps like this. Prizm started here and just went like that over time.
Yep.
And I don't think that was a bad thing. Like I like the fact that Prizm's around $400 to $450 a box. That you can get a box of Chronicles for $170 to $200. I enjoy what drew me to the UFC is that it wasn't so expensive to begin with, which means you could have more fun with it, and especially if you're breaking the product. Like I mean, we know that it's a crapshoot when you open a box of cards. We've seen boxes that leave a lot to be desired. Then you see boxes that you wondered, where the double check was, because all the great cards were in there, and it's fun. But I like where we're at right now. So the products I thought were fantastic. Donruss was not that bad of a product. It's just the problem was for most of the folks to get it, you had to pre-order.
Right.
And I pre-ordered, and it was like $300 a box, and I think I got 3 cases, and then it dropped down to like 150 by the time it released, and I was locked in. So
I was right there with you, Chicken.
yeah. And that was a good learning lesson for me is, FOMO's real. The hype train is real, and at some point what goes up must come down.
Yeah,
right.
I agree with you there. I mean, I think the reason why 2021 was such a boon to Panini when it comes to UFC was plain and simple COVID, right? People got into it because people wanted to do something while they were at home, while at the same time connecting with other people. And that's what brought about, I think, this sheer sort of wildfire that we saw with Hamza, that we saw with Yuri, and a number of other rookies. But I think that with 2022, where I feel Panini did good was that they experimented being inside Select, being Octagon side, having one auto per box with something like Optic Hobby. So it started to tap into different sort of series that have worked before with other sports, and it's like doing this trial and error. But how at the same time, I think that it came at a cost of QA, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, like Chicken, you've heard this, you've heard us, you've heard everybody, rave about how horrible like the QA process was for the Prizm this year, right? Everything being off-center or scratched off or whatever the case might be. And another aspect I think that Panini could have done better was they just reused pictures from Tops, right? We see new pictures coming through with Donruss. That's great to see now, but
Yeah.
I just don't want to see like the pictures that were done 2 years ago. I mean, we know that Marlon Vetta always changes his hairstyle, so I you see something like that. But
Well,
yeah,
look at Tuivasa. I mean, that's a great point in Optic. He's doing the shoot. It's a beautiful picture.
yes.
Yeah.
And people love that card simply because of the picture that's on it. So I think the artwork is getting better as they've moved in some new photos, especially with Select and Optic. There's some really neat looking cards out there that, even if it's not a super rare card, like it's a nice one to have just because they did a great job with the artwork. And I still want to know how Michael Chandler has all the most beautiful photos ever.
Oh yeah, with the flags too.
Photo in the set.
It's the most patriotic background always. I love it.
It's like he's standing like a proud Roman god.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. No,
Yeah,
but to your
fantastic.
point, I mean the Shui picture, you got Bilal Muhammad with the sunglasses, awesome photo. You've got Davison Figueiredo, and I used to be a bigger fan, but that's a longer story. But he's being carried off and he's winning. I mean, the photos look great, and just the feel of the wax is nice. It really feels nice. But yeah, no, I mean, I do think another thing that we've seen, and this is a little bit more macro, and it's a little bit more towards the personality of the people that are getting involved in the hobby on the UFC side that I've seen at least, is I think early on, and you guys, everybody keep me honest, please, but like during the boom, I'll call it the boom, which was 2021, we saw a lot of people dipping their toes into UFC, and they were buying into breaks or they were buying cards, and they were saying, hey, is that a good card? And that was like during the break, right? And and that's fine. Like it's a great way for people to learn about fighters. I learned about a lot of fighters. I still learn about a lot of fighters getting these cards out of boxes and going, oh yeah, I remember seeing them in the fight night. I just haven't been following them. Now I have an impetus to like, or at least an incentive, right, to go look them up. But we don't see that as much. And what I think is interesting about the UFC card community, at least from my perspective, is that everybody that's in it is a fan of the sport first, and then a fan of the hobby second. And that's the shift that we've seen now, I think, is we don't see these people that are just kind of trying to come in, make a quick buck because the UFC card market was hot. I would argue it's still not that bad relative to other sports. If we look at kind of all the number of parallels that were put out for football or other sports. But yeah, I think like the types of folks that were maybe just looking to flip things, that's kind of gone away. But there's a pretty healthy base of true fans that are still there. And we see that already, like in Chicken, your streams, right? The community that you've kind of cultivated. I do like that quite a lot relative to some of the other communities that we've seen.
Well, you saw it tonight when we were doing the tops Chrome stream, and
Mhm.
we pulled a card and it had a mat used from UFC. I think it was 222 or something, and by UFC. Said I took my dad to that, in New York.
That's awesome.
And it's neat that's the nostalgia factor. I also think, we've got a real friendly UFC crowd. And as
Mhm.
newcomers come in, there's a lot of acceptance and like welcoming them in. And I think it's a great way to learn about the sport because you get to talk to fight fans and fighters and folks have been watching this forever or train with other fighters. I mean, shoot, we got fighters themselves that come in and collect. I mean,
Yep.
it really, that's what I think I like. I mean, it's almost like, the UFC is a micro cap stock in the larger, vault where we're much more volatile to the
Right.
changes and things, but we
Right.
have a lot of ability to speak in and influence, and it's a real tight knit community. And I think as Panini continues to carry the torch with the UFC, I'd love if they had a panel where they get feedback from collectors and folks of fans of the sport, and to like what fighters go in there, how they're presented, artwork, all that sort of stuff. And it really, I think it could be an exciting time where we get that opportunity to help influence that and really make the cards, the hobby, the community of it like extra special going forward. And I hope that's
Right.
something we get to do.
So, 2 points before we get into our next, at least just from my end. Uh, yes, we do. It's much more grassroots. What we saw was with Max Griffin. He's a hell of a fighter. He's part of our community. We see him in Facebook. We see him in whatnot. We see him wherever else. And he's actively engaging with us. And what we did with him was that we petitioned him to be in the next set, right? We actually got him to be in Optic. And that was all through people just signing this form digitally to Panini that we wanted to have him on there. But then I think my second point is that Chicken. I don't know if you're doing this intentionally or not, but you are a genius when it comes to what you do. Not to take anything, not take anything away from Turnit because I enjoy your mystery packs and you know how I am. Um, but the way you went about selling the mass product, then getting it back into like 2019 tops to get it into knockout, that's the stuff that really, once you understand the UFC, once you start getting into the fight game more and more and start to understand certain disciplines, more into the history of the game, that's where you have more vested interest. And I think what you're doing right now is a smart tactic.
It's fun. And it's a learning process for me too, is I watched the UFC when I was late middle school, early high school, and then again picked it back up during COVID.
Mhm.
And you take a 20-year break and then you come back and things have changed a bit. But then, God bless, if it wasn't, I'll say this, if it was not for Jiho, I'd probably still be pronouncing half the fighters' names wrong. Even when I hear, but no, and I say that, but that's what I enjoy about it. Like, it's a lot of fun. You continue to learn about the different disciplines and the matchups. And as I watch these fights, on Saturdays, I have a much greater appreciation for the fighting styles, their training, all that sort of stuff that goes hand in hand. And a large part of that was spending time with you all with the cards.
Yeah. And I don't want to get ahead of us, but we definitely want to like have fighters come on our show. We want to take it to the actual camps. But we don't want to get ahead of ourselves right now because I just got to keep myself on task. So we've already talked about the past, but what about the future? What can we predict for next year's sort of sets, including Immaculate? Will we see another Prizm? What about the Fanatics buyout? What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, if I can just start things off, I mean, I was a little disappointed to see the Fanatics buyout of Panini not take place, mainly because it almost seems like a foregone conclusion. And I wonder if the market volatility has kind of rocked their negotiations a little bit. I'm sure both sides are playing hard to get, and making the numbers make sense for both parties. The reason
Right.
I was excited for it, and the reason it's got me a little worried, is because Fanatics has the global distribution model. They know how to market across the world. UFC is one of those products or one of those promotions, right, for a sport that is globally popular. And if they can follow the model that F1 or soccer or other sports follow, right, in terms of distribution channels, merch, Like UFC is big on merch, right? So, I mean, I just thought that would be a no-brainer for them. I also think Fanatics distribution model, moving away from using distributors, going more towards grassroots kind of streaming, etc., that really resonates with people these days. So I thought just overall they were kind of at the forefront for that. Not to take away from Panini, because I love their brands. I really do. I'm probably in the minority, but I prefer Panini brands relative to Topps brands. But with Fanatics, you get both, right? Theoretically speaking. So I'm a little worried, because this makes me think, like, what's going to happen to all of the licenses that Panini has that haven't already been purchased by Fanatics? I don't know. Immaculate to me is interesting. I think they have a chance to really knock it out of the park if they price it right. Because like I said earlier, I am very, very, very bullish on the long term when it comes to on-card autos. They look beautiful. The art looks great. And I saw that they have the rookie shield for Patty. I'm assuming they're going to have like other big fighters, Ilya. We're going to maybe, I don't know, I haven't seen the list, but if there's an Islam on-card auto, Hamza on-card auto, you get Patty rookie auto, Ilya rookie auto. Like, this product could be everything that the 2021 Immaculate wasn't.
Well, exactly. It could be like it could be a collegiate football immaculate, or it could be an NFL immaculate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I think it's based on price point. Whatever's inside the box is going to dictate that. So, if they keep the same format, like the acetates, I think the acetates were beautiful. Bring in some of those new rookies, like you said, with an Islam on card auto or something of a like. I think it's going to be a fantastic set as long as it's priced correctly. I think they just went too high last year, or in 21, just came out swinging and really didn't sell that well for what was actually included in the product. So I'm really looking forward to it. I just think it's something new. I love thick cards are cool. I think they do better in my opinion. I think they stand the test of age. There's something that I want to have in my collection for a long time. For example, the noirs from Chronicles, or a lot of the old Topps relics and stuff that I collect.
Yep.
I like the thicker cards. I like patches and on card autos. So I'm really excited for Immaculate. I'm extremely excited.
Yeah, I agree with you more there. I mean, Chicken, what are your thoughts?
Just like y'all, I mean, I'm excited. So I think anytime they release a product, there's always the chance of it being a home run, and there's also a chance of it being a strikeout. From what I've seen, it looks like 2022 is going to be pretty fantastic based off of just a little bit, and that could always change. But it also, that was released last year at like the height as it started going down, and it's hard to pay $1,600 for a box where maybe 5% of the cards in the set will get you over that. I mean, there has to be the financial side of, does it make sense, or why wouldn't I just have someone else rip it and then I'll buy the singles for 10% of the cost? And I mean, that's the truth too. So
yep,
I like to see them release lower in price and then let the market dictate if it deserves a $1,600 price point. Don't push it there and then have it just be a falling knife. I like with Select, it came out, I think it was around 2 something, and it's worked its way up to 350, but people like the product. The singles, for the most part, I mean, we're in a down market in the UFC. Everywhere is down, but I think we feel it a little harder. But the single sales will dictate what the wax price is worth. If they have a solid checklist, they have great looking cards, and then the quality controls in line, I think it's going to do well, and it's a fun product. I've opened 1 box of Immaculate. I didn't buy but one. I bought 1 box last year just because I don't like to sell stuff that I wouldn't want to open myself. And at that price point, I just didn't feel like it was a great product to have. So I stuck with the stuff I like. But this year I'm very optimistic, and I plan to have a case or 2 on the table when it releases.
That's awesome. You heard it here, people. You got to go on Chicken 101 to break.
I'll be there. I'll be there.
Fuck.
Yeah, and Chicken, like, I remember that opening. And Roll, I know you and I have talked about this. Jiho, I know you feel the same way. And Chicken, you probably feel the same way too. On-card autos, to me, always feel special, because that, first off, everything in Immaculate is numbered. there's no base that's not numbered, right? So everything is numbered. These are cards that the fighters literally had to sign, right? They saw them, right? They had some say into it. And to see the way that performed, to me, felt a lot like, and I don't know how much you all are following the Magic the Gathering backlash to Magic 30th anniversary.
Yeah.
So to me, like, it's almost like a Marie Antoinette sort of moment for a lot of these companies, where it's, you are so tone deaf to your market and your customers.
Mhm.
And hey, I already printed these things. My economic models that are 2 years behind now are pricing these at X. I'm going to pump this out. And I get that from a corporate boardroom perspective, because this is a project that you've probably been kind of taking to the finish line for a year. But at some point in time, you just got to look at the macro environment and say, like, people don't have the disposable income to be buying these things for
Oh, they
that
do
price.
not.
And
No.
what happens is, if you force it, instead of just acknowledging that you win some, you lose some, right? If you force it, you get that backlash, like what Hasbro saw with MTG 30th. And I think that's what we saw in Immaculate. I've never seen so much disdain for a product for UFC than I did
Right.
for Immaculate when it came out on Facebook and other social media platforms. And I didn't get it because I like the product, but then I kind of started thinking about it. I'm like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. It's just, it kind of flew in the face of everything else that was going on. And yeah, they might have a chance here to course correct. And I think long-term people are going to look back and say, like, hey, I think having a UFC glove numbered of a rookie in a card is freaking awesome. I've never seen that before.
Right.
That's insane. I love it. And
Mhm.
yeah, anyway, so I digress. But like, I just think it
Oh,
was bad timing, and it's a mistake that we're seeing across the board for companies, that but to their credit, they moved quick. And I think, I don't know how many decisions were made to, like, add the number of parallels in the price, and at the price point that they were for Select, with all the different, animal skins and all that, and Chronicles and the set list there. But I think they moved quickly to fix the situation, and that is probably good for the brand long term. Whereas Hasbro with MTG, and I don't want to get into, like, tangential topics for other collectibles and whatever, but I think with them we saw them double down, right? But very different response. So anyway, I'm bullish on these products. I think Panini's probably doing the right thing.
No, I mean, there's a reason why I take your word. You know, every time I talk to you, I got to listen to you like close up. I think that with someone mentioned on the chat, Millport Mule, that Immaculate's issue was with its QA. I mean, its corners and edges weren't the best. They've got to have better QA. And yes, I mean, it goes without saying, it doesn't matter the sport, Immaculate is always going to have issues. But the way they could circumvent that, obviously, is to make the product even more valuable, just like how Turnit put it. I think we should also look to the rookie class. I mean, unlike any other sport, this truly isn't like a rookie class every year that we get out where they're just fresh in the UFC scene, right? It all comes down to the way they want to sell the product, how they want to make their person marketable. 2021, they did a fantastic job of doing that. 2022, it's not that bad. I mean, Shavkat, fantastic. With a number of others, fantastic. Patty the Batty, and etc. But then you also have people like Karol Hosa. I don't know how many people are truly have vested interest in Dustin Jacoby, who is past his prime now. I just don't know. So
Yeah, it's and I don't want to, like, go off too off topic here, but what I think is interesting, and I don't know this for a fact, but UFC's promotional model with ESPN and having those licenses, right, is they are going to be putting on more shows, meaning more fights, more fight nights.
yeah,
There was this video, I think it was like, the UFC has a gambling problem. It's a great video. Even if you disagree with some of the points, and I do disagree with some of them, it's like about an hour, a little over an hour, and this guy goes into an assessment of, like, what the impact of UFC being bought by this agency. I forget the name right now.
WME.
Yeah, it was the same guy as Ari, right? That the show is based off of, Entourage.
I think so.
That agency. I can't remember the name of it, but what they basically realized, like, they are less interested, I think, on average, in making stars than they are just letting the volume of fights create stars. Because
Yes.
if you have 100 fights, 20% of those fights are going to result maybe in some star coming out, right? You don't have to have the careful sort of kind of like pruning that we saw before, where it's like, okay, we're going to wait a year for this guy, we're going to wait a year for this guy. With that volume, they can take some more risks, and it's actually less work for them to do this. So they don't have to be as careful. Like, obviously, I know we still privately think that they are pushing certain people and being very careful about which fights they put up for certain fighters based on styles and that kind of thing. And that's probably going to still remain for a little bit. But with this volume of fights going out there, I think there's more potential for people to have some fun. I'm going to use fun in quotes here because you have to be responsible with it. But there's some fun that you can have looking into a lot of these rookies, because there's just going to be that many new data points. There's going to be that many fight nights. Like, I can't even count the number of fight nights in 2022 where there were rookie cards that I had, and I was like, oh my gosh, they're fighting. And like, they're not big names, but I started going back on my fight pass and looking at these old fights that they had maybe a year or 2 years ago and getting excited about them. I'm like, how did this happen? It's such a dramatic shift, right? So anyway, I just think that overall is good from an entertainment value perspective. There's arguments to be made that it's not as good from a fighter compensation perspective and all that. But I do think as a fan, you're going to get a lot more to consume, and you're going to appreciate a lot of these other rookies that maybe would be considered fringe in 2021 and before. So anyway, I'm excited about it. And that's why I think the 2022 Prizm class of rookies is actually going to hold pretty good value for the next few years.
Can we do something? Can we all take an oath right here together, even those watching? We all raise our right hand. And we'll say, repeat after me. I solemnly swear that I won't give up on a fighter if they lose once.
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yes. That is such a good point.
100%.
Oh, chicken hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. No more. Like, people, and I think the UFC's done with that for the most part. They're like, there was this whole thing where you have to be lossless to be considered a good fighter. Can we just stop
it's not
with
just
that?
the UFC.
Oh, yeah.
We've seen plenty of card collectors that got everyone hyped, and they lose. Like, look at Sean Brady. Not everybody, but I mean, you would have thought the man could walk on water. And then, I mean, he fought a heck of an opponent. And yes, he lost, but like, look, I remember I reposted a card of Julian Marquez because I like him. He plays disc golf. He's from Kansas City. I like the guy. And someone DM'd me and said, "Why would you post that?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And they said, "Well, he's lost, his last." And I said, and I'm sure somebody said that about, Oliveira.
Yes. Chicken, 100%. Like, okay, who doesn't like Francis Ngannou? Who doesn't like Charles Oliveira? Who doesn't like Jan Blachowicz? I mean, there are some people that don't like them, but look back at their records. They lost a lot. Like, Dustin Poirier has lost a lot. The guy is still an animal. Like, and I think maybe what's happening is people are realizing that this is a brutal sport. It's tough, but like, RDA, this guy's a beast. Like, a lot of these fighters don't have clean sheets, but that's because they are taking risks, and we need to start respecting that. And I think when people actually get into the sport more than just, I'm going to watch 3 or 4, pay-per-views a year, and the cards do this for you, because you start following all these fighters. As soon as you get these big rookie cards, you're like, oh my gosh. Like, for me, Chicken, you pulled me the Adrian Yanez, right?
Yeah, the Black Shimmer.
Yeah. And I was so excited, but I was like, okay, I've only seen him fight once. Let me go back. And now I love him. I love him. And the cards did that. And they can play off of each other, and it's exciting. And I think people, the more they watch the sport, they're going to realize that the redemption story of like overcoming adversity, becoming better. What was it? Chito Vera. He got, I think, the most improved fighter of the year. I forgot who gave him that award, but another good example, right? Like, you want to see people improve. They're good human stories. And a lot of these fighters are more than just what happens in the ring. They have families they're supporting. They're overcoming other challenges in their personal lives. I mean, I don't know. I'm getting sappy, but yeah.
But even for collectors, so if you're new to collecting, or even you've been collecting for a while, I would encourage you, before you jump on a bandwagon or not, watch some of their previous fights. I mean, there was a lot of excitement for Claudio Puelles, and then we watched him basically slip on a banana 35
Yeah.
times this fight, and everyone was like, I've never, I don't know if it was deserved or not, but I mean, like you talk about someone that lost favor with collectors, like literally
Yep.
in a matter of 10 minutes.
Right.
But people are like, that's how he fights.
Yeah.
That's
Chicken.
exactly the point.
Yeah. I was literally thinking about talking about Claudio right before you said that, Chicken, because yes, his fight was disappointing. His style was a little disappointing, but this was the first time he really met his match. And he like he showcases something that is really an impressive, like he's really good at what he does.
Oh,
And
I think we just lost Chicken.
Oh yeah, we lost Chicken. Let's give him a second.
But
But that was so funny because I was thinking the same thing. Like he impressed me with the way that he was able to kind of.
I was thinking the same thing too, actually.
Yeah, that's
just a little bit earlier.
I mean, look, if we think about like how it was back in the day with what's his name? Imanari, right? Remember the Imanari role back in jiu-jitsu where this I don't think it was a bantamweight or a flyweight. He would just literally roll around and then look for that heel hook. That's all he was looking for to end fights.
Like Ryan Hall.
Yeah. Yes, Ryan Hall. Yes.
Ryan Hall actually looked to Imanari as his role model, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just amazing that people like think that everyone's gonna come in with like some crazy knockout power or just like submit the person with a flying armbar out of nowhere, right? They're human.
It's mixed martial arts for a reason, and that's what I love. Is if you think this is going to be a little nerdy, but it's like if you max out one skill on your character in an RPG, Ryan Hall is what you get. Claudio Puelles is what you get, and sometimes that works, but then the meta changes, right? And that's the UFC for you. I mean, the meta, there's a meta, right? But I mean, it lasts for years. We saw grapplers come in, Sambo guys, the reign of Khabib, the Dagestanis. There may be a time where that changes again. The sport evolves.
Right.
People should be excited for that.
It's always going to be this dynamic between striker versus grappler, ultimately, right? There's a reason why Izzy reigned supreme and Robert Whitaker couldn't beat him, or even Yoel Romero for that matter. So I see that it's always going to be a clash of styles. And I'm just grateful that you guys called out that stand by your fighter. It doesn't matter who or she is, right? They are going to eventually lose. They're human. I mean, as much as I do not like Patty, I mean, he actually evolved. Even though Jake and I might see a hole in his games, in this game, but that's just how it is. I think we already talked about how we already see some some influence that are going to be impacting 2023. Are there any other sort of macro sort of market conditions that we might see with our hobby?
Yeah, I wanted to just make one other comment, if I may, Jiho, which is I think checking to your point too, and I know Jiho, we've talked about this before, but it's before jumping into the hobby, before buying cards, think about like why are you buying them, right? Mm-hmm. There's so many. I think we're going to get to this anyway, but there's different types of collectors, and I'm a completionist by nature, so there's certain sets that I like to complete completely. Like, no pun intended there, right? But it's I want to have that completeness. I want that symmetry. There's other fighters that I just want maybe the best of their card, right? And things of that nature. But you have to realize like the things that move, and the UFC is interesting because the fights are so infrequent, right? So you have time to really think about what you're doing. You don't have to wait for one game to the next, to the next, to the next. Who's going to make the playoffs, who's not going to make the playoffs. You have a little bit more of a window to think about things. So you have that luxury with UFC. And what we've seen is people really gravitate towards personality. They gravitate towards social media presence. I'm not trying to like say that Dana's got it all figured out, because it's always a work in progress, but he's right. If you have a personality, you don't need to win every single time, right? So there's fighters whose demand and prices are based on personality. There's fighters who performance is the only key, and understand what drives their value and be realistic about it, right? Because if somebody is only driven by performance, if they're for some reason they get a close split decision or they lose, you might see something really bad happen to their card value. that shouldn't be surprising to you if they don't have the social media presence to back them up.
Exactly. Case in point, Colby Covington, right?
Yep.
So,
Or Yuri.
Yeah.
or Yuri Prohashka, right?
Yes.
But you have to also understand he only fought 3 times, right?
Mhm.
Like, I don't know if I believe in him because he messed up
It's
his
like
shoulder.
Alex. It's like Alex Pereira. It's kind of the very similar situation.
Right.
Who was on the Patty card on the last fight? Was that the Chandler Dustin fight, or was that? Am I thinking of a different one?
That was, I think, the fight before. The Patty versus what's his name? Jordan. Who was main card?
Jordan Levitt.
That was Mago and
Magomed and
282 was Jan
Jan
Magomed. Yeah.
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 So it's almost like a buffet. So this is how, I mean, if I was in Dana's position, why wouldn't you promote a guy who has the personality, the reach, he's plugged into YouTube, he's fun, people like him. Like he speaks to things that are relative to all of us. I mean, I like the guy. So if that brings people in and they buy a pay-per-view and they watch starting at the main card, I mean, think if you had even the Mago Jan fight. I mean, watching Jan just kick his shins to like, it's one of those where like you come for something, like maybe you go to the buffet because you really like ribs, but then they have like a great baked mac and cheese that you turn out you love. And you're gonna go back to there and eat, that's how I look at it. It's like you want to bring these personalities in, and every fight doesn't have to be this super intense, match of highly skilled to be entertaining.
That's
Now,
right.
to be a good fight, possibly based off of, for the more purists that understand it, right? It could be a bad fight in the technical sense and things of that nature. But, people were bashing Michael Chandler after he lost to Dustin. I would pay double to go watch that man lose a fight
Yeah.
once a month because good God, was that entertaining and fun. And I mean, Dustin, it was exciting. And at the end of it, like, isn't that why you tune in to you're on the couch, your heart's beating, you can't believe, he just made it through that choke and this punch and all that sort of stuff.
Hey.
It's thrilling.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if
And
the product
I
is
could watch
good,
Michael Chandler fight every weekend.
Yeah. 100%.
So if the product is good, which they've done a really good job in the last couple months of, when I purchased those cards, 80% are great fights to watch. That doesn't mean they're all overly exciting, but I feel like I'm getting my money's worth across the board in addition to the fight, you may really want to see.
Yeah, I mean, we're always thinking that we're going to see like dream matchups, right? I mean, case in point, Israel Adesanya versus Jared Cannonier. Not that exciting if you're not a purist of the sport. But then what we saw with Alex Pereira versus Izzy, entirely different. And he's got to stick by. I mean, I feel like we're just dumping fighters left and right as if like they're like women, like they have sharp elbows. We'll complain about something. Like,
Yeah. It's like Seinfeld dating. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I'm a Chicago Bears fan. You guys can forgive me. And I appreciate good defense. Okay. And when you have teams that have good defense in football, you're not going to have a high scoring line. That's okay. That's okay. And actually I find defense exciting. So like you have to appreciate the defensive players if you're a purist, right? And it's not just all offense, even though people try to move it that way. The same is true of baseball, right? The league is trying to move into an offensive mindset, right? Because that's what people want to see. But good defensive plays, you kind of stop somebody's home run. That's exciting to me also. And then a more probably recent example would be like World Cup. I heard a lot of people that are not into soccer, even though they're watching World Cup, say, "Oh, they don't score that often." Like that's true, but did you see some of the saves? Like some of the goalies were absolutely crazy this World Cup. So anyway, my point is there's more than just action, action, action. And to Chicken's point, a lot of these fight cards, you come in for one thing, but you start appreciating other things. And I think fans are recognizing that over time is, hey, I want to see some high level grappling, like Armand versus Gamrot. That was to me amazing fight, very technical. To me, very exciting. I don't think anybody was bored by it, but very different from like Chandler versus Dustin, right? Two different types of fights, both
Same
very
weight
exciting.
class. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we made some very solid points as to why this sport is just really a passion point for all of us and should be for others that we just, that we see on the daily, Whatnot or eBay. So actually, that brings me to my next point. Obviously, this is a great time for collectors, but let's start to talk about the differences when it comes to platforms, right? What we can expect to see with eBay versus Whatnot versus Facebook, especially for the people that are new to this hobby. What should we recommend to them? What sort of advice can we provide to them with 2023?
It platform platform is half of it.
Mm-hmm.
The people are the others. So obviously, I mean, I break on Whatnot. I've been on for over a year, and I don't know much about technology. Y'all can attest to that. I've already accidentally clicked out of this interview once, and you
I
had to
know
help
what
me
you're
get
talking
started.
about.
No one noticed. It's
Um,
okay. It was smooth.
but obviously, so from the tech side and the platform, it allows for better servicing of the customer, right? Clear video feed, easy features, for shipping on the back, all sorts of stuff.
Right.
I think the difference maker is going to be is what quality is the community and the people, right? So are the people that watch, collect, buy, hang out, are they folks you want to be around? And then the folks that you're purchasing from, I mean, do they take care of you? Are they
Mm-hmm.
priced fairly? Do they ship the way they should? Do they pack the way they should? Should they, they fix problems? I think that's going to be the bigger driver than just the platform itself, because you get to a point where these other guys, they're going to hit a ceiling in technology advancements, and then it
Mm-hmm.
comes back to what it always is. It's the people. So I don't care how great your platform is. If the guy handling your cards doesn't sleeve them properly, is the cards are missing, he doesn't ship for 5 or 6 days. I, I don't care what platform I'm on. I'm not probably going to go back if I feel like that's the status quo. So the competition's always good. As things grow, it forces people to innovate, get sharper, better, or leave the space. So I'm excited to see how it grows. I like what we have going, but more than anything, I like the people we have,
Mm-hmm.
especially in our little UFC community. So whatever happens, I still have my friends.
Totally.
Agreed.
Yeah. Jake,
I think it does come down to the individual for sure. I totally agree with you, Chicken. On any platform, eBay, Whatnot, Mercari, wherever you're shopping, it always comes down to the individual. And I'm much more inclined to buy from somebody that I've already bought from that does a great job with shipping, packaging, all of that stuff. I want my cards taken care of the way that they should be. So, yeah, it definitely comes back to the individual.
Yeah, I think
Totally agree.
what's interesting too is when I think in 2021, when people were looking for cards and they wanted specific singles, it was really cost prohibitive to go and buy a big rookie card that you wanted. The
Mm-hmm.
prices were just too high. And Wax obviously was like they both play together, right? Like if singles are going up, Wax is going to go up, right? And if Wax goes down, singles may or may not go down. Like they kind of go hand in hand. But I think at that time, if you wanted like a big Hamzat rookie or a Yuri rookie, you were almost willing to buy into a break to see if you could hit it there because the price point was approachable relative to trying to bid, get into a bidding war on eBay, right? And we've kind of seen a shift now where it really is a buyer's market. I've been buying a lot of different things for my PC that otherwise I would not have been able to just because the prices were so high. And what I've found, Chicken, to your point is, look, there's people in every aspect of this hobby across all the sports that are in it for the money that maybe are not as, they're not looking out, they're not as altruistic, they're not looking for everybody to win, right? They're not as interested in the hobby aspect. They're more trying to just make a quick buck or whatever. And people just have to be cognizant of that fact that those people exist. And I think, Jiho, to your point, what you realize is, hey, if I'm buying a bunch of singles off eBay or whatever platform, some of them I'm going to get some cards that may be damaged or there's something wrong with them that was not disclosed. Maybe the pictures weren't the way that they should be. And you're going to be like, wow, they got me, right? And that's going to leave a bad taste in your mouth. What I think, though, is probably more than other communities that are a little bit more saturated in the UFC, I haven't seen this happen as much. And I keep going back to the sellers where I'm like, hey, I know this person isn't trying to pull a fast one on me. I can trust that their cards 90% of the time I'm getting what I see in the picture. Maybe they missed something small. So it goes back to people. And
Yeah.
if people are treating the hobby and the community as something that they're a part of rather than something to exploit, then everybody winning is you winning, if that makes sense. Because all of a sudden you're getting the cards you want, someone else is getting the card. Like, not everybody's a Jan fan, right? Or a Jan collector. I am, right? So I'm going to be willing to give some other stuff away, right? And it just, that's how the community is functioning right now, is this trust. And I think UFC is better for it, but people need to be careful. There are some things to be cognizant of, and I'm sure we're going to cover that later in some other episodes in the future. It's just best practices and how to stay kind of safe. But yeah, I think now more than ever, trusting the person that you're buying from is paramount.
So now let's actually flip it, where we obviously have been providing perspectives from a buyer's end. From a seller's end, what do you do to actually promote or foster this kind of experience where you build trust, you build that sort of loyalty? What are some things that we can tell our viewers that have worked for us, whether it be on eBay, whatnot, platform agnostic?
That's a great question. I actually talked to a gentleman today that's starting baseball, and he goes, I don't make much margin on these. He goes, but that's okay because I want people to know who I am. And I said, well, that's a lot of times sellers and anything, they expect trust to be built in, right? Here I am, trust me until I prove you wrong.
Right.
I think that needs to be reversed. So when I first started, I mean, in Turnit, you were there. I mean, you guys were there. We did wild stuff. I mean, there was a lot of cards given away. Like, we just, but it was, I felt like out of, thousands of streamers, I needed to show you why I was different, and why I like to have fun. And that was forward. And then the second part was like, do what you're supposed to do. So I look at it as, the moment you spend money with me, that's no longer my card, my product. And my goal is to get it as quickly to you, as accurately and safely as possible. And if I fail, then I make it up, twofold, because, and I say this in the streams, people's time is just as important as their money. And if you're choosing to spend both with me, like, that's a stewardship piece that I need to be aware of and thankful and grateful for. So it's a matter of, how would I want to be treated? What connections can I make with people? We talk a lot about UFC cards, but man, there's so many people on Instagram that have been in the streams and stuff that I stay in touch with, and we don't talk about cards. It's family, it's their dogs, it's travel, it's this.
Yep.
So I think you can still have that mentality in a business standpoint. Obviously, as you grow larger, it becomes harder. But, I'm fortunate. I've got some other streamers that, they're an extension of chicken. They believe in those things. And I found I looked for good people, not good streamers. The streaming
awesome.
can be taught, the innate values, where your heart's place, but where your heart's at, and that sort of stuff. Like, you can't coach to that, but you can say,
100%.
hey, hold the cards a little further to the right. Make sure, so I think it's just a matter of finding the right people. And that's why I like having truth tellers in the stream. We got guys like Porchy, that people sometimes like, Porchy's kind of brutal. I'm like, that's good.
But he's brutally honest, right?
Yeah.
You want that. That's your true north. Those guys that'll let you know when you're slipping and you're losing sight of what's important. They'll say, chicken, that, no. And you're like, all right, you know what I mean? So it's nice to have that. But I think it's all on what you foster. What do you to invite into your streams? What do you allow? And then people follow suit. And I think we just got real fortunate that, the Coop group, which that was actually coined by Turnit, by the way. He did. He came up with that. But the Coop group's, only as great as it is because of the people we have in it.
Integrity is more important than ever. But even when, like, everybody was jumping on the bandwagon, so to speak, for sports cards or collectibles or NFTs, crypto, whatever, right? Everybody was piling in, right? But I think people quickly realized that integrity is hard to come by. You need to trust the people. It's a relationship, and it's chicken. We've known each other now for over a year, right? And like, We've talked about personal stuff completely outside of cards many times. And we always trusted that you were handling the cards well. We always knew that whatever came out of the box, it was going to come to us in exactly the shape that it came out of the box in. And you can't say that about every streamer, or at least you couldn't, because a lot of them already left. A lot of the people that were just trying to make a quick buck, they don't care. They weren't there to listen to you. They weren't trying to foster that like trust necessarily. And I think that kind of turned off a lot of people, but it's nice to see that a lot of people are still in it. And those that are left, I think right now it's a stronger group for it, if that makes sense. Like we've gone through this process, and yeah, I mean, I to add to what you were saying, I think just trust, integrity, all that good, fuzzy, warm feeling stuff is more important than ever. And it's actually going to make a stronger base for the hobby and this community going forward.
Jake, your thoughts?
I totally agree, and especially with how many people have been approved on Whatnot. I think with the influx and how many new streamers we have, that's more important than ever. I totally agree with what you just said. The warm and fuzzy is what does it for me. If I can trust you, I want to shop with you.
But warm and fuzzy with results. See, that's the key part.
With results, right?
If I don't treat you you're still, if you're purchasing, you're a customer, right? And you deserve, at the very least, a solid level of service, if not a very elevated level of service. And if you can't, if you take advantage of people's goodwill and kindness, and slack on the basics that you should be doing, you're going to lose trust across the board. And Ro, you sent me that trophy that one day, and like I almost started tearing up because I wear a chicken mask, and open UFC cards, and I never in a million years would have thought I'd be doing this, but two, that it would have the impact that it has. And like, guys, like I feel like I got friends all over the country that if I got stranded somewhere, like I'd just have to go live and be like, hey, I need some help, and like there'd be somebody that would be like, I got you, chicken, like we can come tow your car, or you got a place to stay, like.
Yeah,
it's incredible considering we've never actually been in the same room before.
We'll help you bury some bodies, chicken.
Hey, if you get stranded into Chicago, I call chicken. All right.
That's basically how
find your own chicken, Paul.
And
you got it, no problem.
Like, we come from different circles, and just to have a common bond. We obviously met through the chicken stream, and we can't stop obviously preaching about what you've actually done for us to look at the hobby with not only the lens of just because of our passion point, but to also make it grow the right way, right? And what I've learned from your stream personally is that, sure, yes, it's a transaction that needs to be made at the end of the day. You can obviously set your guardrails. You don't want to have anything toxic, tumultuous of that sort of nature, but you also foster one in which you want to celebrate the individual. You want to celebrate that sort of experience. So that's what's most poignant, and that's why I think people are, even not saying they are going to, why they even pay like a higher price point to be on your channel. You already have them to make them feel like, hey, even just for like 5 minutes out of a day, 5-10 minutes, I'm actually enjoying this. This is something that I know that might not get the best ROI. I'm not trying to flip anything, but this is something I actually can bond others with, right? So they may not have the time of day to actually go out there and exercise, or necessarily go to that gym, or get more into the UFC per se, but at least they got some sort of like moment that they could share with us.
Yeah. If you rely as a streamer or breaker or card seller, if you rely on big hits to draw people in, I don't think you'll last for long, right? Because what you find out quickly is like it's not about the cards. Like it is, but it's really not, and it's a great way. The cards are a medium to get to meet people and make relationships and connections, and that should be the focus.
It's a conversation starter. It's like you learn who likes who. Why do you like them? Why does that fighter like? Why do you feel like you have a connection with them? Right? You learn so much about people through this, For good and bad, right? Like some people are just chasing all the hits, right? And like you gotta, maybe that's what you're into. That's okay if that's what you're into, as long as you're being honest with yourself. But yeah, I think just all the friendships that we've made along the way through the hobby have been through the side conversations and the jokes and the memes and all the little sayings and the nicknames and all the fun goofy stuff.
I mean, this goes even beyond just like what we've experienced through Whatnot, right? Joe's card stash. Case in point, they're shouting us out, right? Then we have other people that just heard us through some other person, and they're like, "Hey, have you checked out this podcast?" I'm like, "Whoa, how's this even happening?" And yet, it's because like we all support each other. It's like how y'all mentioned, the tide raises all ships, right? So it feels great to be part of something that's micro, and obviously, like Chicken had said, through time, it's going to be a little bit more difficult as it grows naturally.
Yeah.
Um, I think we should talk about in 2023. What can we see this podcast? Where is this headed? And what sort of shows do you think we're going to be having? Return to normalcy, talking about slabbing versus something. Let's talk about 2023 outside of just what we talked about. Anybody want to take it?
Yeah, I'll kick off and then I'll listen to y'all. So I think 2023 for the chicken, if you will, is I'd like to continue with the momentum that we have. You know, there's going to be outside factors that do or don't play a role with the economy, fanatics buying or not buying, but all those sorts of things, but they're completely out of my control. My goal is to be as nimble as possible, and hopefully whatever ends up happening, that people, they gravitate to people they should, right? That treat them well, take care of them, whether that's me or not. I hope that's the outlook for 2023, is that, as the hobby's gone through a couple years of the gold rush and it calms down and you shake out those there for the gold rush, you get the people that want to be there long term. It just becomes more tight knit. I'm adding a couple more streamers starting in 2023. Just some different stuff like that. But I think the biggest challenge I'm going to have is like, how do I stay fun and innovative? How do I continue to make things unique and exciting for people? And as the other streamers come onto the platform, I mean, I look at KC Cards. He did something a couple weeks ago that I thought was really unique and like thoughtful. Was he did a case break, and you could buy the different sets of Chronicles. And I thought that was a really neat thing to do. It was different, but I hope we see more like collective collecting innovation coming through. Like, I love when people get their PC fighters just as much as when somebody gets a big card. Like, it's just as exciting when like, oh my goodness, like Jay Kim's one of my favorite examples. That man he loves Korean Zombie, and when he pulled that gold Korean Zombie, like it made my day, because I know that card's probably gonna get buried with them. So I hope we have more of that happening. That as people don't make the flip, or the price, fixating on the price and the value, the main thing, and there's a nice balance, right? So for whatever reason you're in, it's fine, but for true collectors, it's really hard to collect when it costs $150 to get into a break and you may or may not get someone you like.
Yeah.
A lot better when you go pick up that card for $3 or $4. I still think Dunkman's the smartest collector there is.
The ultimate newness collector.
Yeah, he gets all the newness, Nina and Amanda. But I mean, Nina, he said, this is why I love chicken. This is why I love collecting Nina. He picked up her green like octagon side for $8.
What?
And that's a super rare card, and it's
crazy.
great.
Wow.
That's crazy. Yeah. I think 2023 is going to continue to be a buyer's market. I think it's going to be an environment that's good for collectors. I think if what I don't think things are going to get that much worse, because there's only so far that things can go, right? What I think is interesting about the UFC market is that it's actually, in my opinion, pretty stable, at least at this point, meaning that the people that are buying right now, for the most part, are collectors more often than not, which is kind of a change. And I don't know how true that is for other sports, to be honest with you. But I do think that what we're going to see is more and more people that are fans of the sport, that are fans of the hobby, getting more and more involved in kind of because now the doors are open, right? It's not really cost prohibitive to try and go and collect things. They're going to probably get a little bit more curious about completing certain sets, about certain parallels, learning about the products. It's going to be a much more interesting time. And I think the content creation that's coming out, this podcast included, but with other streams that are going out there, it's actually a hobby. It's not just chasing the money or chasing a flip. It's actually a hobby, and it's going and like I came into this around the pandemic, and I think Jiho and Roll, we talked about this a little bit, right? We kind of came back. We got, we were all stuck at home. We're getting into it, but people probably that were into the hobby before the pandemic already were in this kind of environment, and they saw the craziness of the gold rush, right? But I think we're going back to the roots, so to speak. People are really interested, but the hobby on average is better for it because now there's more people into it. A lot of us have rediscovered this passion for this, right? That maybe we kind of forgot about for a long time. So I think on average, overall, things are going to get better. I'm going to be interested to see what happens next year with Prizm. I don't know if it's going to come out or not. We see Immaculate coming out early in 2023. Maybe they'll elect not to do Prizm.
Mhm.
That would be interesting to me. I don't know if that ever happens. Does that happen?
You mean not do Prizm period?
I don't know. Have
No
you
chance.
heard anything?
No chance. They're
Don't
doing
do it.
Prizm. Come on, turn it.
Yeah. And I know,
mean, I have no
I'm just
inside
saying,
information, but that's like saying like
I know. But how crazy
that's
would that
like
be?
saying you're not going to have a quarterback,
Yeah.
playing football team
Yeah.
that comes see. You got to have
Yeah.
Prizm.
Or select. No Prizm or select. I don't know. I got nervous. I got nervous because I didn't see them promoting it. They're promoting Immaculate coming out maybe before Prizm. But I guess we saw that with Donruss, didn't we? With Donruss, that came out before Prizm. So, but that next Prizm checklist, I cannot wait to see what's going to be on there. That I'm very excited for that. Whenever that ends up happening.
Yeah, totally. I'm really hoping for 2023 that we kind of extend the view beyond just the stars and people start seeing guys that are kind of under the radar. I'm really starting to make these cards. Go ahead, Jiho.
No, I'm agreeing with you. Just preach
Oh,
on.
okay. No, yeah, I really hope we can just extend this this hobby into something where we glorify these guys who are coming up to. I think it's going to be kind of a year, like Chicken said earlier. It brings people in with these stars, and then you kind of extend and see all of these great fighters that are coming up, and some of these guys, I mean, they're fighting for what 10, 15, if that, 1,000 per fight. And I mean, it's hard to survive, and these guys are paying for camps and things like that. So I'm really hoping that it brings attention to some of these guys to bring them into stardom also. So that's my hopes for 2023. I know it doesn't have anything to do with cards, but another point, Jiho, and I'm sure you've seen this on Whatnot a lot too. The amount of people that have asked me about jujitsu just because of the card hobby.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's totally something that's changed my life for the better. I know it sounds cliche, but it's life changing. It's not just the community; it's about the people and the people that I've met through here and formed relationships with. And a lot of those people have asked me, Jiho as well, about jujitsu, and hopefully it can be a positive change in their life. So that's my hopes for 2023. I know it doesn't have a whole lot to do with cards, but yeah, just with the community in general.
Hey, it's blood, sweat, and wax. It's not just wax.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey,
that's more of my contribution than the card side.
You guys inspired me. I still haven't gone in yet because I'm ashamed of my cardio, but I'm getting there.
That doesn't matter. Everyone says that they have to get in shape right before jiu-jitsu, which sounds weird. It's like you want to have an appetizer before you go to a buffet.
Hold on. You know what? Jiho says that here. You know how many times I've heard him say, like, I can't wait to go to BJJ practice and snatch the soul out of some 20-year-old that thinks he's hot and stuff.
Oh, that's awesome.
Turnit, you get your cardio up, because what's going to happen is you'll walk into a gym for the first time, and some old timer's going to go, you know what? That's the kid that's getting it today. And you're going to end up with your arm behind your, it's going to be terrible.
I love it. That's awesome.
I mean, I live for these types of moments because as visceral as they may seem and dark, it really comes down to just building that community, right? I think what we're going to see with 2023, aside from like that 2% increase in 2024 and 2025, um, I think that we're going to see an evolution of fighters, right? When fighters back in before 2000, they didn't have to have social media channels, right? They didn't need to go on Facebook. They didn't need to be on Instagram. They didn't need to have that sort of presence. Now it's a requirement to connect with a younger audience. And I feel like as like we're adapting to as though they're like adapting to more of a digital extension of themselves, they need to also get into the hobby more. And I feel as though they're gonna start doing that. And like Jake had mentioned, and Turnit, like maybe there with Raul Rosas, he could actually talk about cards and whatever. We've always seen this with Brandon Moreno. It wasn't the best way that it was promoted because it was in a club and he was ripping stuff for a streamer and they could barely make out what he was saying, right? So it wasn't the best experience. But we're definitely going to see something of that, I feel. But yes, I also think that once people get more have vested interest in this hobby, they're going to want to know more about jiu-jitsu. They're going to want to learn more about Muay Thai, not only to get better in shape, which I think, which is a fantastic venue. I think that they also want to learn the fight game better. Why are people saying that Patty is hanging up his chin? Why do people saying that Patty spars like he's in Taekwondo and not in a true MMA fight? So when you have that sort of perspective and outlook, it enhances not only like how you respect the game, but it makes you come to appreciate your fighters all the more, right? You're already drawn to them through their personality, but once you understand the technical aspects of MMA, that's why Jake and I are just enthused when our people ask, "Hey, Jiho, hey, Jake, let's get." I'm asking you guys about like, "Hey, where the nearest gyms are? Do you guys support them and whatever?" We're here for you guys, and um, yeah, I feel as though that's where 23 is headed. And hit us up if you guys have any questions about that.
I also want those are great points and 100%. Like I can't wait to start getting more and more involved in BJJ and other things, to be honest with you. And I would have never, if you asked me this 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I would have never guessed that that'd be something I would even be entertaining, to be honest. And then what I think is also very unique and Roll, this goes back to what you were saying, is like, I think people like engagement. We see the importance of social media. We see how much Dana cares about this for obvious reasons from a promotional standpoint. People have got millions of followers, whatever. But a lot of these guys, right, they've been working their whole life for this, right? And they only are just getting their shot. And I don't know how this is in other sports, and Chicken, maybe you can, you know enough people where you might have some anecdotal, examples of this, but I don't know of any other sport where the fighters, from the newest rookies to the most established fighters, are responding to people's posts on Instagram, to cards,
commenting.
Commenting. Like Alexander Romanov was messaging me back because I got really excited about some cards, and I was talking about his last fight and trying to encourage him, even though he beat a Polish fighter who I usually support. No offense, Marcin Tybura, I still love you, man. But like I think that this sport is still relatively young in how it treats its fighters and the people that make it what it is. And if they're not getting the love that they deserve through the sport and the promotion, and it's a dog-eat-dog world, you're negotiating contracts, you're not going to have best friends at the table, negotiating, right, how much you're going to get paid and all this stuff. You are engaging with fans, you're excited about fans, and the fans are excited about you. That is a very different ecosystem, I think, than any other sport, where one feeds the other. And I don't know. I'm excited for that, and I think we're going to see more of it.
Well said. I mean, that's something I love. They're accessible, and maybe that has something to do with the fact that, you said this earlier, Roll, these guys make 10, 15 grand a fight, right? When you go into and that's not for every guy that gets drafted, but if you're in the NFL, NBA, MLB, you can sign a piece of paper and you're basically a millionaire overnight, right? So when that happens, a lot of people elevate themselves to, what they should and shouldn't do, or who they should associate with, and that sort of stuff. And they have an air, or can. For these fighters, I mean, they grind it out, man. You know what I mean? They are. It almost reminds me of the NFL back in, what was it, the 60s or 70s, where these guys would go sell cars in the off season because they didn't make enough money to play NFL full time. It was a different approachability and sort of mindset. And I feel like the fighters are very much like that, where these guys are, unless you're, Connor, some of these other big ones, you're still very accessible. And I think they're still very appreciative of the interaction and fans that they have. And it shows.
Yeah.
I had this, so bassist dude, someone's brother, just said disc golf pros can make more than that. That is true. And I love your point about how football players were selling cars in the 1960s. When you have a grassroots sort of like movement like this with the hobby or a sport, like for example, people are trying to get jiu-jitsu into the Olympics, right? They're trying to sacrifice a lot of things. Even like roller derby. I was part of a dodgeball, adult dodgeball league, right? That's actually globally recognized. And it's amazing what people do just to make it, not only make it a success, but to make it the community even more rich from it. Yeah.
I just learned about pickleball.
Pickleball.
Apparently it's popular. I was living under a rock. I didn't know.
I feel like Jiho's like the Dos Equis most interesting man. Dance offs with Boss Rutan in professional dodgeball leagues.
That's hilarious.
One day I'll show. Maybe one day you guys will meet Boss Rutan, and I can't wait for that to happen.
Oh man,
that's awesome.
And can I call him Mr. Rutan Tootin?
Yeah.
I'm sure he would actually like that. He's such a positive influence in MMA. I mean, he was on MMA Live. He's doing a karate thing with GSP now.
That's
he's
awesome.
just an overwhelmingly a positive role model of what it means to be a champion, both in and out of the cage. So
that's the discipline of a lot of those fighting styles, though. It's in the pillars and the values, and the mind is just as important as the body, the kicks, the punches, and it's twofold. So you see a lot of that with a lot of those guys, that there's a code that they follow. Not everybody. And before anyone watching this goes, what? Not everybody, but that is ingrained in a lot of those fight disciplines.
Yeah. We won't name those fighters, but there is a pretty cool YouTube episodes, I guess, or series between Demetrius Johnson and Henry Cejudo. And they were adversaries. They fought twice, but then they're sitting on a couch talking about their fights and like what they did wrong, how they complimenting the other person. It's amazing what this sport can do. Unlike other ones where you're waiting for them to be geriatrics, chugging their 40s and whatever. These people are in real time. They want to make themselves like each other better. And that's what's the beauty of MMA. I'm not saying that's for everybody, but there is honor to the sport.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. Yeah.
It's just as varied as people.
Did you see recently, Jiho, that actually Demetrius Johnson is training Henry Cejudo to fight Aljo?
Yes.
He's working with him.
Are we going to talk about 2023 fights right now? Because I could talk about that.
Gentlemen, if we do, I may have to go because I'm not going to lie. I think I'm suffering carbon dioxide or whatever poisoning from my own breath that I'm breathing with this mask in and out.
No problem.
But Chicken, it was a pleasure having you on this show. I mean, just the very fact that you're here listening to us ramble on, but then also providing just not only lessons in the hobby, but life lessons overall. We appreciate that. And to be that role model that people can turn to, even just on the regular. Thank you.
Well, guys, I appreciate you having me, and I can't say that enough. And I love that you're doing this. And I saw the first one. I look forward to seeing many more of these because, I know you all. So it's fun to watch something that your friends are doing. So congrats on this. And I wish you many, many years of fun and success with this.
Oh,
Thank you, Jake.
Thank
Appreciate
you,
it.
Chicken.
Thank you. And I guess that's going to wrap up our show for today. And again, a quick shout out to Chicken 101. We're going to have your details of the channel below in the description, along with Joe's card stash. Thank you again for giving us a sweet shout out, especially from an esteemed colleague. All right. That about wraps up our show. And thank you for everyone that's tuning in, engaging and everything. So we hope to see you guys soon in the upcoming year. We wish you a happy new year and wish you the very best.
Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you, Chicken. Thank you, everybody. And then when we come back early next year, we can probably do another show and just talk about some of the fights we're excited for.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Roll. Thanks, Jiho. I love you guys. Love you, Chicken.